and welcome to Who Corner to Corner podcast. Thanks for joining us. My name's Jeff, and his name is
Paul. Yes,
well
I almost forgot there.
I thought, am I supposed to say it?
oh yeah, you could have. Should we do that again? And his name is
Paul.
Yay!
And
Sophie.
there he is. And we've got a very special guest with us tonight. A rising actress talent who has been on a number of Big Finish audios recently, including one that has been very, very popular recently, which we'll come and talk about in a little bit, I'm sure. You listened to that one as well, didn't you, Paul? And
yes, I've listened to it many times, Jeff. Yes, indeed. It's my fave.
Let's be honest, it was frankly brilliant. So I'm looking forward to finding out a bit more about that. But we're joined by Sophie Shad tonight. Hello.
Hello, lovely to be here. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for joining us. It's very good of you.
Yes, indeedy. Yeah.
How's your day been?
Day's been great.
So we've got quite a few questions for you tonight, which I think you've seen. So hopefully you got a bit of an idea of what we're going to be firing at you, and nothing will terrify you too much. So we know a little bit about you, but why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a bit about yourself so that our listeners can get a bit more understanding about who you are and what you do.
Sure. Well, I am an actress. I do voice work and other work as well. And what can I tell you about me? I trained at the Royal Central School of Speech and Drama. I worked as a child as an actor. So I did a lot of the musicals. I was in Les Miserables. Yeah. I did Grange Hill, a TV show that was on the BBC.
Did you? Wow.
I did, yeah.
That's cutting your teeth, isn't it? From Les Miserables to Grange Hill, brilliant.
Yeah, it was
Iconic.
pretty. It was back to back. So I went from old France to new Elstree, and it was great, so much fun. And then I trained and started working as an adult, and have been doing it since. And I actually did quite a bit of voice work as a child. So when I moved back into voice stuff as an adult, it wasn't so alien for me.
Well, we'll come to a couple of those things a little bit later, but
you know what's going to happen. Sorry to interrupt. I'm going to fixate on Grange Hill now, right? Because that was big for me when I was a kid. So admittedly, that's probably way before your time, Sophie. To be honest, but I'm talking about back in the days of. You don't need to worry about that. Move along. Next question, please. It was the days of Zamo and Roland.
Yeah, wow. I mean, they were the classics.
Yeah, they were. Yeah. Not quite Tucker Jenkins sort of era, so slightly after that. So, yeah, grew up with Grange Hill, dreading going to secondary school because Grange Hill just looked so terrifying when I was a kid.
It's true, and it was quite terrifying. I'll tell you that.
What, on the set was it?
Yeah, I mean, it was I was a little bit younger than everyone else on the show, so I was 10, but playing 12, 13. And there's some heavy storylines that go on. I think I got bitten by a tarantula at one point. Goodness. It was very dramatic stuff.
Wow.
And what happened when you got bitten by a tarantula? Was that the end, or?
Passed out. It actually turned out to be German measles, so there was a real cliffhanger, a bit of a twist. Yeah, everyone was on the edge of their seats, but she did survive to tell the tale.
It's good news. Good news. I'm grateful for that now. Actually, you introduced me to a trauma that I didn't even know was there, and
there you go. New fear unlocked.
Because you never know with some of these things, do you? Like you said, some of these storylines can get really heavy.
It's true, yeah, and they're things you've never thought about, and suddenly it's a reality.
Yeah. Wow.
I haven't seen Grange Hill in years. Is it still on now?
No, it finished a while back, didn't it?
Did it?
It did, yeah. It finished not long after I was in it. I think they moved up to Liverpool for a while.
Did they?
And then it was done, yeah.
Well, I guess once you'd left, there's probably not much point carrying on.
Yeah, done. They peaked.
Just cancel. Yeah, peaked. Yeah, cancel. Yeah. So, Let's kind of kick off tonight with a bit of Doctor Who talk before we get into some other stuff. So you recently appeared alongside Joe Martin in one of the Fugitive Doctor box set stories, which was The Legend of Baba Yaga. So when this came out, people basically, I don't know if you saw, Sophie, maybe you did, but people went mad for it. Not only the whole box set, because people had been waiting a really long time for Joe to have her audios come out, but because the Baba Yaga story was so good. And you played Facilia in it, and you've also done a War Master story as well, didn't you, with Derek Jacobi and David Tennant? So
yes.
Tell us a little bit more about those in a moment, but were you a fan of the show before you got involved in the Big Finish stuff?
Well, I mean, of course, I'd grown up knowing Doctor Who. It's a cultural phenomenon. I have to say, I always found it a bit scary as a child. And I think I inherited that, because my mum tells the story of, and you guys might know this better, but I think at one point the Daleks were in Euston or somewhere in London, and her dad had a dry cleaners very close to where they were, and she was petrified. Like it really, it was like a real phobia. I think she was about 5. So that maybe was like in the late 60s.
Could be Dalek Invasion of Earth, perhaps, when they were pictured just wandering around the streets of London and all the famous landmarks and train stations and things. So
and I think there's something really strange about seeing these creatures in a space you've been to. I think it feels more real. So I always found it a bit scary as a child, but since doing the audio dramas, the world has kind of come to life for me, and I have a newfound appreciation.
Oh, that's good. It is still, like, when I watch it, I'm not necessarily scared as such, but I can understand how you could be, and
you are scared. Don't give me that, Jeff. I've seen you running in terror with your tail between your legs, sunshine.
I've asked you not to tell people that.
Sorry, but if you're going to have that facade, I'm going to push right through it.
Sometimes I think about, like, I'd like to show my kids this episode. This is quite good fun. And then someone will get vaporised in the next scene, and, disintegrate, and I think, perhaps not, So it can be quite scary, I think, So, how did you get involved with Big Finish in the first place when you started on the War Doctor one was first, wasn't it?
It was, and I think it might have been just after lockdown. I had joined a voice agency called Sue Terry Voices. They're brilliant, and I think they'd gotten me into Big Finish for another audio drama. I think it was called Car Crash with Amy Lou-Wood and Alfred Enoch. It was like a rom-com, and I met the team there, and I think that was maybe how they discovered my voice reel, and then I just got a call to say that they wanted me to come in for the War Master. So that was like a little warm-up, because it was just a very short day of recording for the part of Severin, and it was actually remote. So we weren't all together. But I thought they really weaved it together so well, you couldn't tell.
Yeah, there was a lot that they recorded during lockdown like that, and you couldn't tell that people were not together. So when you recorded remotely, could you hear each other, or were you just doing your lines solo?
So I actually did go into the studio, but it was just we were all separate. So what happened was the director was reading all of the other lines to me.
Okay.
And they were just recording my part, which actually, with the other voice work that I do, that's really common. That's usually how it goes for video games and kids' animations and things like that. So that wasn't particularly unusual. But since then, I've done a few more, and it's you can't be all being in the same room and seeing each other.
Yeah,
I think for actors that's such an important thing, isn't it? Being able to kind of feed off everybody else. I mean, yes, you can do it independently. That's where there's a huge amount of skill in doing that and imagining the other people there. But no replacement for interacting within a group, I guess.
Yeah, definitely.
And when you're all together, do you all get to do the standing around and running on the spot and screaming and all of that?
A lot of that. Yeah, that's all it is, all day long.
Other parts performed by members of the cast.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Kind of thing, is it?
Yeah, it's crazy.
I'm not auditioning, by the way. It's just...
Well, I think you're a part.
Oh, good.
Hey.
Your dream will come true eventually.
Yes.
So it does seem that way with Big Finish, that people go in and do, a little bit part on something and kind of make a good impression, and they get asked to do something else, and it kind of grows from there. And I quite like that they've got this kind of repertoire type thing going on, and people pop up across different things, and once you're sort of in there, you're kind of in there, and even if it's just one a year or something like that,
Yeah, it's about one a year, and it's so much fun. Do you guys find that you recognise some of the voices now when they're playing multiple characters in different things?
Actually, I think it's harder than you think, because I think the characterizations are often so good. Even when it's the same person in one play, I think, oh my gosh, they did both of those voices. Do you know what I mean? It's so good.
Yeah, when we were listening to Baba Yaga, and it's Jacqueline King, isn't it, that did Baba Yaga?
Yeah.
Honestly, I hadn't seen her name in the credits, and it was only about 3/4 of the way through the story, and I was looking at everything and reading it. I was like, oh, Jacqueline King's in this. Well, maybe she turns up right at the end or something. And then I realised, oh my God, she's Baba Yaga.
She's right then.
And what a great performance.
She sounds nothing like that when she's speaking normally, thankfully.
Yeah.
It'd be great if that was a natural voice, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's just put in the rest of it. Yeah.
Come into my place! She's going full witchified on that, wasn't she?
Yeah, full witchified. In fact, it's quite amazing when you're recording in the space. Sometimes we're dotted around the room, and sometimes you can't see each other if you're sort of in a little corner, but you can always hear each other really well. And it was quite amazing hearing the witch voice, and then breaking for lunch, and it's like a completely different person.
It's just like, pass me the sausage rolls, would you, please?
Yeah.
Yeah, was the Big Finish lunch as legendary as we've been led to believe?
Really legendary, yeah.
What's that?
Yeah, because we got told it wasn't as good as it was a while ago.
A while ago now, wasn't it?
Because of COVID, so
come back.
Yeah,
now.
gone back. Yeah,
it's pretty good. The last time I was there, it was Lebanese for lunch, and it was delicious. Everyone was happy.
So
fantastic.
The last time you were there, who else was there with you? Can you?
Well, I don't think I'm allowed to say this.
Oh no!
We try every time. We try so hard.
I could have really got into trouble there. I thought about this just before. I'd love to tell you because I think you're going to be so excited, but it'll come. I think it's about 5 years till it's coming out, which is mad.
This is one of the downsides of Big Finish, because when they do little press release that they're doing such and such a box set or something like that, you've got to wait for a long time when they actually do it, and that must be a bit weird as an actor as well, is it? When you're recording something so far in advance.
Do you forget that you've done things sometimes?
No, you don't, because these things are so memorable.
Yeah.
But it's a real waiting game. I mean, this one that we did, I think, was January 2023. So a couple of years have been by, and I remember because I'd just been in the hospital the day before with kidney stones, which was so painful.
Ouch.
And then when I got into the studio and I met Jo, we hit it off talking about kidney stones. I think she had kidney stones before, so that was like our first bit of conversation before we got into the drama of the play.
Jo's fantastic, isn't she?
Yeah, so a couple of, when was it, Paul? 2023, about November, I was asked by Al, who is the head of the Doctor Who range at Character Options Toys, would I come to London to film Jo Martin revealing her Fugitive action figure.
Wow.
And I was like, yes, I think I could do that. And
check my diary.
Yeah, and I did actually have to shuffle some stuff around at work to do it. And I went up and we met Jo and we got chatting, and she said she'd recorded her Fugitive stuff quite a while before, which would line up with the January of that year, like you were saying, and then it's taken a long time to come out. And then a bit like you were saying, there, you know things and you can't tell us. We had to hold on to the secret about Joe's figure for like 3 or 4 months, didn't we? And when I was up at the BBC, there was a guy that we both knew who was there on the day, and he bumped into Joe, and he had his picture taken with Joe, and I nearly sent him a message and said, would have just missed you. But then I thought, no, I can't, because he'll go, why were you at the BBC? Which was quite unusual. So it's quite fun keeping the secrets and stuff. I quite like it. Yeah, it's good. So tell us a little bit about your character in the Baba Yaga story, because she's kind of a folklore legend, isn't she? And I've had a bit of there's sort of various story types that she appears in, I think. In
I think
history.
So. There is, yeah. I did a bit of research beforehand, and it's always really fun when you're playing a character that exists in the world. So I could see images of illustrations of what this character might look like. I think it's a bit of a Cinderella story.
Yeah.
And she's had quite a sad life. But it feels like she's quite a strong character, and there's lots of wisdom and bravery there. And I think in this particular episode, she goes on a real journey.
Definitely.
It's almost a bit of a coming of age story.
Yeah.
Yeah, she kind of starts quite sort of timid. Well, maybe not timid's the right word, but kind of she's kind of beaten down a lot, isn't she?
Yeah,
she's getting a lot of abuse and stuff from her stepmother, and her stepsister is probably the only friend she has, and she's sort of a friend, but not really. It's because obviously her loyalties are always going to be with her mum, so she's not quite there. And then she's given this horrific task to go and find some fire from the old mad witch in the woods, because and the stepmother's rather gleefully kind of rubbing her hands, saying, "Well, that'll be the end of her then. Well, she won't come back, will she?" It's pretty horrific, isn't it?
Yeah,
terrifying.
The whole story.
Made of.
Yeah, it was far kind of darker and sort of spookier than I was expecting it to be, and I love the kind of parallels between the Doctor, particularly Joe's version, and Baba Yaga, and the house with the chicken legs and the TARDIS. And as it was going on, I was like, oh yeah, they're really playing this stuff nicely. And then of course you will discover what the house is kind of made up of and things like that, and just absolutely fantastic, the whole thing. And I'll be honest, I kind of hoped that your character was going to go off at the end with Joe and carry on in the next one, and
they
be
made
a
a
companion.
fun little duo.
Taking it was really good, and it would have been quite nice having a kind of period companion that then goes off into the future and stuff like that. Maybe we should start a campaign. I think that would be quite good. Yeah,
brilliant idea. We should definitely do that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, for the whole of that story, then, I mean, she is the Doctor's companion, isn't she? So, how does it kind of feel being the Doctor's companion even if it is just for a story?
Oh, it was so much fun. I mean, Joe's brilliant, as you know, and then there's something really glorious and exciting about being able to spend time with another actor, going on a journey. But when you're doing it in a voice booth, it's like so much of your imagination that you're using. So, and we were lucky in this one in that we got to move through chronologically. So we were really going on that journey and getting all the beats, where sometimes it can be out of order.
Oh, yes.
We had a question actually from Gilster, who's one of our listeners, who wanted to know whether you record in in narrative order or whether you jump around. So do you find it, I imagine it's kind of easier, more rewarding to do it in order, because you can literally follow that journey, but I guess when you're doing film or TV and you're all over the place, you've got to mentally keep track of where the character is at that point, and what's before and after it. So it must be quite hard doing it that way.
Yeah, I think it is. It just involves more energy to kind of figure out where you are mentally and energetically with the character. Whereas with this, we're just moving through really nicely, scene by scene, taking that journey together. Joe and I are opposite each other when we're recording, so we're able to see each other and respond. And when we're running, we are running on the spot. But we don't have all the sound effects, so we're having to imagine all of that, and that is really exciting when you get to hear the finished piece.
Do you ever? Sorry, I was going to say, do you ever find yourself doing the sound effects when you're there, or are you far too professional for that?
I don't.
You can admit it to us if you.
Well, I suppose what I mean by sound effects is like the world that they're in, the wind and the atmosphere that you just don't get. So you're kind of having to imagine that stuff. Yeah. And then, the big booms and the crashes and things like that, you're kind of raising the volume of your voice as if that's happening. But there's nothing like hearing it for real.
Yeah. Is it quite freeing to perform in an environment like that where you can just kind of go for it and it's literally up to you guys to create everything.
Yeah, it really is. I think when you're working in film and TV, it can be quite. It's a big process with a lot of people in the space, and there's set design and costume and lights, and you're stopping and starting quite often for continuity and things like that. Whereas with this, it really is so stripped back. There's something really beautiful about that it's just the words on the page, the microphones, yourselves, and then just the world that you create in your mind as you're running through.
How long did you spend recording? Is it just a day on each story on average?
Yeah, it was just a day for this one. And other ones, I think it's usually a day per episode.
Right, it's quite a lot to get through. Do you get the option for lots of different takes and kind of trying different deliveries, or?
Yeah, we do. I would say, on average, we probably run the scene 2 or 3 times. And then whoever's directing will usually find certain lines that they'd like to be delivered in a different way, and sometimes we just pick those up on their own. Right. And then things move more quickly as you move through the day because you've warmed up and you know the character voices, and you're used to working with each other after 6 or 7 hours.
Yeah.
Does it ever feel like a long day, or does it go by quicker than you think?
It does go by really quickly, and it's a really comfortable space there. It's really cozy, and everyone's really lovely, and so it never feels like a drag at all.
Yeah, that's great,
isn't it? Yeah.
So you do quite a bit of other voiceover work as well. Would you like to tell us a little bit about some of that?
Yeah, so I do a lot of video games. Particularly kind of anime style video games.
I saw a few on your site,
Yeah, where they take the they're kind of making it English, but it's usually American, the accent. But I'll have the reference from the actress who has delivered the lines in China or Japan, and then I can kind of use that and try and mimic it in an English American accent. So that's a lot of fun, and there is a lot of physical stuff. So often we have to imagine that we're fighting, and everything's really high energy, and the voices are really young and cutesy. So that's kind of like the tone of how the day goes, and you don't get the other person, so you just get your lines. You have no idea what's going on. But that's really fun, and then. I do kids animation stuff, so I'm in a series called Isadora Moon. It's Sky Kids TV, based on a series of books.
Yes, so one of my twin... no, I haven't actually, but one of my twin girls reads the books, and she really loves them. And I didn't realise that there was a series, and I saw it listed, I think, on your site.
It's great.
IMDb. So I thought, I must remember that and tell her, because she's going to love that. So I'll have to check that out.
It's so cute. One of my best friend's little girls is obsessed with it, and she dressed as Isadora Moon today for World Book Day. And that's just so fun. So I play Aunt Crystal. So she's the premise is it's about a little girl who's half fairy, half vampire, and I'm on the fairy side, the mother's side of the family. So I'm a winter fairy. So that's always really fun to go into the booth and get to be a fairy for a day.
It's fantastic.
And then it's audio books, little commercials, other audio dramas like this. So it's a real mixed bag. When I was little, I did quite a few Radio 4 plays. And I did the Les Miserables adaptation, which was, I think it was maybe like an 8-part series. It was a big one for the BBC. And interestingly, I think the character of Cosette that I play in that and in the musical when I was little is really similar to this this character that I play in Baba Yaga, in that it's kind of
interesting.
She's an orphan type character that's living with an evil stepmother and is working in the woods. So there's a bit of a type going on there.
Yeah. We'll come on to Les Mis in a minute. But I was just going to ask. So I know the kind of voices and stuff that you do, video games, because Paul, you play a few things like this, but like Japanese RPG type things, and I bet you have to do a lot of like the climbing sound effects.
Yes.
And all that, and getting hit. And I always listen to these things and I think, I wonder if the people doing the voices feel really weird and silly doing it, but it's part of it, isn't it?
It is. It's just part of it, and everybody that's on the other side of the glass has seen it a million times.
Yeah.
So you don't really feel so silly, but there is a lot of like punching and kicking the air and creating the noises that go with that. Yeah.
When you started doing stuff like that, did you feel kind of self-conscious about doing it, or do you just have to kind of throw yourself into it, the running on the spot and the grunting and all of that sort of thing?
Yeah, maybe in the very beginning. Maybe in the beginning it would have felt a little bit strange, but you train at drama school and you do the maddest things at drama school. You spend half a day crawling around as an animal that's like your spirit animal, and so like after you've done that for a year, it's nothing really seems silly.
Everything else is quite normal,
fun,
really.
Really?
Well, that's the thing. You wouldn't do it if you didn't enjoy it, and it's kind of getting to play in a way, isn't it? Really,
it is.
Different things. So when you started in Les Mis, how old were you?
I was 9 years old when I did the musical. Yeah.
So what was that like, kind of, working in the West End like that and doing that? Because I suppose, were you doing the evening performances of it?
Yes.
And so it must have been quite a different life to what other kids of your age would have had,
Yeah, it was different. I'd done another musical the year before called Showboat that was at the Prince Edward Theatre, just behind the Palace Theatre, actually. And so I'd had a bit of a taste of what it was like to be working nights and then going into school in the day. And then Les Mis was just an amazing, that was like the dream role for me. I had the 10-year anniversary videotape and I watched it every day. And I was determined, and I actually had auditioned a year before and I hadn't got the part. And they said, get some singing lessons, come back. And I did, and I got it. So that was a really nice little lesson from a young age that, if you work and you try again, you get there. And then, just a mad experience, really, going into the West End and performing. I got to leave in the interval, so I wouldn't have to stay until too late. But it still felt very late at the time.
Yeah, of course,
and I was
that age,
and my run was through the winter as well, so it was really dark and cold, but so fun.
I'm just thinking as well, when you're 9 years old and you're doing something like that, because I mean, my kids, when they were 9, they were generally really, really hyper comes bedtime. So what must it have been like for you and your parents, like finishing up at the theatre, then getting home, then having to just, do the routine and everything else? That must have been something.
Gosh. It felt like, you felt like being a grown-up working, because it was all adults that were in the show. It was only my character and 2 other children. So it was such a buzz. I mean, it was at the Palace Theatre at the time where the Cursed Child is now. So it's a real big theatre.
Oh, yes, it moved, didn't it? Yeah.
It did, yeah. So it was really epic. And you'd get such a buzz going on and performing, and then you'd come out the stage door at the interval, and I'd still have a load of dirt on my face from the character, and get the train home, little urchin, and then I think I'd be allowed to stay up for a little bit. I think I'd get a McDonald's takeaway. That was my treat. Because I couldn't eat before. I was so nervous every night. I was just like, I can't eat. So I'd eat afterwards, and then I think I'd you'd get a real chill, like post-show relaxing feeling of like the adrenaline's gone, and you sleep really well, and then into school the next day.
Yeah, was that strange going from, quite a high, of being on stage like that in a big thing, and then kind of going back to
having to do
normality.
school.
Yeah, going to school. Yeah,
I definitely found that I'd spend my days looking out the window, daydreaming and wishing that it was the time to leave so I could get onto stage. But I wouldn't change it for the world. It was so exciting and learned so much there from all the cast and just the experience of doing it.
How many nights a week did you say you did?
Well, I shared the part. So as children, you share the parts. I don't know if it's still like this, but I shared the part with 2 other actresses. So we would do 3 nights on, and then 4 nights off, and then I think you might do 4 nights on, 3 nights off.
Just rotate it around, like.
Yeah, exactly. And then every 2 weeks you do a matinee. So we would have to leave school early, which is always a highlight. Brilliant. Getting to leave at lunchtime. So exciting on a Thursday. But it never really got in the way of schoolwork. At that age, it's not so intense. You're not doing massive exams or anything. So it was just really enriching.
You just kind of adapt, don't you? The children are massively adaptable. You just kind of get on with things. It's surprisingly resilient in so many ways.
Yeah, it's so true.
Yeah, and I suppose when you're given this kind of magical theatrical experience of being on the stage and just acting things out, that's fantastic. I mean, obviously you must have had it, so it's probably a ridiculous question, but a lot of support from your parents. Were they really supportive with you? With helping you and.
Yeah, they were really supportive. I mean, I wasn't a stage school kid because I think they felt like that could be a bit intense to be at stage school all day. But I loved it, and so they really supported that and let me get singing lessons, would take me to auditions. And I feel really grateful. And I lived in London as well, so that helped. I know I've got friends who are actresses now, and I'm like, oh God, that would have been a dream as a child to be able to do that. For me, I live in Wembley, so it's like half an hour into London, really easy. But feel very, very lucky to have had parents that helped encourage that without being pushy showbiz parents.
I think
that's fantastic.
That sort of work, so. I run a little video company, and it's similar in a way. You need that support to be able to, get you into it, and whether it be staying at home in your 20s whilst you set things up and get going, or when you're younger being taken around things. All parents support, but you know what I mean. There's it's quite hard to get into that sort of world, isn't it? So you need a bit of different support, I think, to be able to do it. So it's great that you had that to get you going on it. So
sorry, I was just going to say as well, just to finish that up, it's because a point you mentioned earlier, which is your own persistence. So you didn't take that one knockback at not getting the part as the end of the story, or I mean, it must have been quite hard at the time, but to come back
really
and then win it.
It's so true. It was such a lovely lesson, and I think it was also really good. I also went on loads of auditions that I didn't get. And you get really good at taking that rejection, not taking it personally, but just being really professional about it and thanking them graciously. And that's stuff that I think is really tough as a kid, to not get what you want. And I think it definitely gives you a thick skin that prepares you for other setbacks in life.
And also, people will remember you, and you may not be right for a job, but for something else, you get remembered for, and you just, I find, like I send out pictures for work and things, and then once it's done, you just kind of forget about it and move on, and if you do get, thanks but no thanks, well, it's not me. It could have been, if you're acting, the colour of my hair wasn't right, or the light, it's all sorts of things that, they're looking at hundreds of people, and it's not a personal thing, but it's getting your head around it a little bit, I think, isn't it, really?
For sure, yeah.
So after you did Les Mis, how did you went on to Grange Hill after that, didn't you? So how did that come about for you?
Yeah, it was just really lucky. I finished, and then the audition came up straight after.
Right.
And I got it, and filming started like a week after that. It was mad. I almost didn't do it actually, because
Really?
back then you had licensing regulations for children.
Okay.
And I think I had hit my limit on how many days you're allowed to work in a year. And we ended up having to go down to Brent Town Hall and ask really nicely to the person who was in charge of it.
Yeah.
Just, in the end, he allowed, and that was an amazing experience to move into going from theatre to TV and a whole other world. Yeah.
Well, yeah, exactly, and that is fantastic experience at such a young age to get both the extremes like that, and I suppose I was going to say, did you have a favourite? But I suspect at that time it's just all amazing. But you've actually got quite a varied career anyway, haven't you? With voiceover and film and all the different things you do. So I guess kind of you just love all of it really, and the more you can do, the more employable you are in a way, I guess.
Yeah, definitely, and they all have their own little benefits. Whether it's theatre and you've the nerves beforehand, but then you have that amazing buzz when you come off stage. But then with film and TV, it's like much more intimate, and the emotions that you're feeling in the character are much more intricate. And then with voice, there's like the immersive side of things where you're using your imagination and that you don't really get to do when you're on a busy set. So yeah, there's pros to all of them.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
So you've done quite a few of your own projects and written things, haven't you? And some comedy sketches that you create online. So tell us a little bit about some of that and the schnoz as well.
The schnoz.
The Schnoz. Well, the Schnoz was a short film that I wrote that won the Pears Film Fund. It was funded in 2020, and it's a comedy about a grandma who gives her granddaughter a check for a nose job for her 21st birthday. And it's loosely based on a true story, in that my grandma did save up for me. She got her nose done in the 70s, and she said, if Sophie ever gets my nose, I want to know she can get it done. And I didn't take her up on the offer, but I thought it was so funny. I wanted to make a film about it. And then the next part of the film is that the ghost of her great-great-grandmother, whose nose she's inherited, comes to visit her, and they connect and learn about her heritage. And in the end, she doesn't go through with it because she feels more connected to her heritage and her roots. So that was really fun, and I'm actually developing that at the moment with a few people. So we're writing a series that's based on a girl being haunted by the three very bossy, loud ghosts of her great-grandmothers on her maternal side, and causing havoc with her life.
Excellent.
How are you finding that process then, kind of writing, collaborating, trying to pitch this thing out there? Is it
I love it.
Obviously different from the acting, but
really, really different. I mean, I think we live at a time now where, as creatives, as actors, it's really helpful if you can make your own work. Just creates opportunities, you get to meet people. So it was great. I got to work with Dame Maureen Lipman in the Schnoz, and hopefully we can maybe get her involved in the series. So yeah, it is really empowering making your own work, and the comedy sketches that I do really just started as a bit of an experiment. Where I've always loved comedy, and I thought I may as well play around with some things and see what gets traction. And there was one character that just went viral immediately. And it's she's a kind of a Christian choir girl with plaits, looks very innocent, but she sings songs from the West Indies, so about naughty things like ganja, and people really like it in a very posh accent. So that's done really well and has had millions of views, and and it's led to TV opportunities. I work with Big Nasty on the Big Nasty show for Channel 4, and Mo Gilligan and Judy Love, and And actually, when I met Jo Martin, she had seen some of the sketches, so we were having a giggle about that. Amazing. So yeah, it's I always say to actors that are like feeling a bit frustrated if things are quiet, that if you move into creating your own work, you take a bit of power back, because instead of sitting and waiting for the phone to ring, which you just can't control, you get to go out there and make stuff, and then it leads on to other things. So.
And if you're an actor anyway, you're performing, aren't you? You're, if you're creating something, you're writing it, and then you're performing it. So you're constantly flexing that muscle.
Exactly, and some of the actors that inspire me the most have done that. I'm a massive This Country fan. I think Daisy May Cooper is just amazing, and really been inspired by the path that she's made for herself.
And I think you're absolutely right, Sophie. By making your own stuff, you never know what will happen from it or with it, and it keeps you busy as well. I see quite a lot of people who are aspiring filmmakers, and I think, why do you just stop aspiring?
Just make a film.
Oh, one day I'll make a film. Just go and do it. Like we've got phones in our pockets that
I know exactly. Just on your iPhone,
more than capable.
It's never been easier.
It's never been easier. And I run a film festival through work. It's not a big one. Paul's been there, and it's great. Isn't
Brilliant,
it?
Jeff. You did a disservice, mate. It's fantastic.
Wow. What's it called?
Films that have
it's called Horsham Film Festival, because it takes place in Horsham. We spent ages thinking
of that name. What are we going to call it?
Agency for that.
One of the goals with it was to we literally put in the press release, we don't care what you film on, we just want to see good stories, and every year there will be films that win that are just shot on an iPhone. And the sound might be a bit chunky, and all this sort of stuff, and then there'll be something else that's been shot, with there was a film last year, Paul, do you remember? It was done in the volume, with the big screens and stuff.
That was good.
And it was great. But what I find is that the films that don't have a big budget behind them, and particularly the kind of student and youth films, they always have these really kind of ambitious ideas, bonkers ideas.
They don't care, do they?
They're not held back by anything.
No, they're not. It's brilliant, and you go with the imagination. You just get so wrapped up with the enthusiasm and the performance. It's a lot of fun.
It's great seeing that, and seeing some of the kids who've put in a film and have won, or been nominated, then going on to college and doing stuff, and now uni and things, and moving forward. And I just think, just get out there and do something. That's how I started with things. I'll make my own films, and I'll learn, and I'll get stuff wrong, and then I'll fix it next time. And now it's never been easier in many ways to get your stuff out there. And I just think, same with actors. Just go do something, get together with some friends, make something, and keep yourself busy. And so with your sketches, when they started to go viral, how was that? What did you think and feel with that? Was it like a bit mind-blowing?
It was a little bit, because I'd had a meeting with a producer who I'd connected with, and he'd just given me a bit of advice, and he'd said, put 10 characters out there, so record them beforehand, put them all out on the same day, and just see which ones people have an appetite for. And I was really flabbergasted by the speed at which this one character had gone viral. And every time I upload a video in this particular character, it just spirals. It's amazing. And I think the best thing about it is just seeing people laugh, making people laugh. Like, it's an amazing feeling knowing that you can upload a video from your bedroom and someone on the other side of the planet is giggling, and you're kind of spreading these happy ripples out into the world. And actually TikTok's been amazing for that, because people often do these duets where they film themselves watching the video. So I've just got hundreds of people that are either singing along with me or they're just crying with laughter because it's so mad and silly. So you wouldn't get to see that before, and I think that's really rewarding as well. So it feels like a real privilege and an honour to be able to make some things that spread a bit of joy and laughter.
And when
fantastic.
It's similar-ish to the podcast, isn't it? When we started with
I suppose
exactly.
Is anyone going to listen? And we'll do it for us, and it'll be very similar for you. Will anyone see this? Will they like it? And then when people send us a message saying, "Oh, we really love what you do," or "We can't wait to hear your thoughts on this episode," or whatever, you think that's mad, and it's wonderful, and just putting yourself out there like that, and good stuff can come back to you on it, I think, really.
100%.
I think it's really great. Someone said to me once that influencers or people who are making stuff can be seen as quite narcissistic, but actually they use the analogy of you need to put out as much as you take in. It's really easy to consume everybody else's material and scroll. But actually, it's a bit like sitting at a dinner table and spending your whole life eating everyone else's dinner versus finally bringing your own dish to the table. When you look at it like that, you think, it's actually the opposite of having an ego. It's driven by serving and giving something back to people that they might like. So I think that's a really nice way of looking at it for anyone that's making stuff out there.
Yeah,
I like that. That's made my day. That's really good.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. It is, isn't it? We do this because we enjoy it, but we found other people enjoy it and they want to get involved, and great people like yourself will come on and have a chat, and that's wonderful. And like you said, there could be someone on the other side of the world laughing at something you've done, and we know there's people in Australia listening and being entertained by what we do, and it's
it is, isn't it? You look at the countries around the world that listen to us on our stats. It's mind-blowing, really, isn't it?
Do you remember, was it last year sometime? So we have a subscription thing and people get a badge when they sign up. We had various people sign up, and I was like, Paul, I'll send the badges out. I was like, this one's to Australia, this one's to Australia, this one's to Australia as well. But that's incredible, to do that, So I'm going to have a closer look at the sketches you've done, and
definitely, we'll put a little link out on the
we'll
socials
put it in there.
YouTube.
That'd be great. Thank you.
So tell us a little bit more about what else you're working on at the moment, and your plans
anything you
for the rest
can share with us that isn't zip-mouthed and confidential and NDA.
There's a few things I would love to tell you about. And I know you'd be really excited to hear about it, specifically in this Doctor Who world. But I'm not allowed. I can't at the moment.
Look,
I tell you what, I'm delighted you're doing more Doctor Who. That's a good thing, at least. So that's
there we
really
go.
Great.
It's.
Will you promise us? Sorry, will you promise us you'll come back and talk about it, even if it's in 5 years'
Absolutely
time?
Promise. Yes. My goodness, that's terrifying. Where I'll be in 5 years. It feels like a lifetime away.
Well, you might be too busy at that point, and every chance.
Speak my PA, darling.
Yes. Those two, no.
Is it?
Absolutely not. No. If you keep the same backdrop that you've got on here, then I'll do it, because I feel like I'm in some sort of TARDIS at the moment.
Brilliant.
So
it'll forever be known as Sophie's backdrop now.
It's brilliant. But no, I mean, the auditions come up as and when they do, and when you book them, things tend to move quite quickly. So we've got those happening at the moment. There's the development for the schnoz, which is we're about to start sending that out. So that's really exciting.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, and then there's a few more video games that I'm doing. I've got a series that I've written that's sort of semi sci-fi. I would say it's set in the afterlife. So that's quite fun.
Yeah.
But it's what they would call high concept. So it's harder to get stuff like that made than if it's a modern day piece that's just in the real world. And then a few sketches. I'm trying to stay sort of productive with uploading one a month. That's what's happening at the moment. But it feels like this year is picking up nicely. We're in March now, and I think the industry was in a strange place last year with the writer strikes, and everything felt like we were all waiting, and it really feels like it's picking up now, which is exciting.
Yeah, I agree. You know, the stuff I do is a bit different, but and the strikes kind of didn't directly affect me last year, but it sort of had an impact on everything, didn't it? You know, I think people were just sort of, we won't go ahead and we won't, you know, we'll hold off and things. And
That's what it
you know,
was. Yeah, everyone was cautious.
yeah, and it just, you know, how things just filter through, you know, and it just, it was quieter, wasn't it, last year? But I think now it's starting to pick up, and you know, we know some people from Doctor Who, you know, they work in the business and stuff as well, and they, you know, say the same thing, you know, but it's getting busier again now, so that's good.
Yeah,
anyway.
yeah. I have to ask, actually, Sophie, just listening to, you know, see the story behind the schnoz with, you know, the ghost of the grandmother, and they talk about a series set in the afterlife. Do you have a kind of fascination with the supernatural? Are you a fan of those sort of ghost story, kind of fantastical things?
Yeah, I do. I am. I suppose I'm very open minded to what's out there, and I think there's loads that science just hasn't proven yet, and we'll get there one day. So I'm really fascinated by the idea of what happens after we die, and that side of things. And I think it's a fun avenue to explore it within the realms of film and TV. And in terms of, I suppose, time travel, I mean, I've always been interested in time travel, and I think actually as a child, one of the reasons that I loved acting was that it sort of felt like the closest thing to time travel. When I did Showboat, we were going back to I think it was the late 1800s, Mississippi, America, and you'd get on that film on the set on stage, and you'd all be in costume, and it really felt like going back in time. I did a film a few years ago called Allied that was set in 1940s London, and they had built the Royal Free Hospital, and it was during the Blitz was the scene that I was doing. So there's like bombs dropping, and everybody just looks like a picture. It was amazing. So I think anything that involves jumping into different eras is such a passion.
Yeah, it's like time travel, isn't it?
I never thought of it like that.
Yeah,
it is. I genuinely think it's the closest thing. When we were doing Allied, there was a maternity ward, and they had built every millimetre of what this ward would have been like was there. And I looked around, I just thought, I feel like I've stepped back into this world. I'm just staring at every brick is exactly how it would have looked. So that's really exciting, and actually that's why this episode with Baba Yaga was so much fun, because it felt like going back in time with Joe Martin for a bit.
Which it's nice to tie it back to that, actually, the conversation, because I think one of the things I really enjoyed about that is that sense of atmosphere and the sense of place, and you know, it sets in very quickly, because that first scene with the three women in the house and the candle and it goes out, it's full of so much atmosphere. And one of the great things about audio, I mean, I the first time I listened to it, I actually listened to it on the headphones with the lights down so I could get really into it, and it generally felt like he was transported away to a land that is kind of half recognisable, because it's in a real place in a real time, but with the fairy tale element, it becomes somehow kind of elevated, you know, with the horsemen and all that kind of weirdness that goes on. And then of course the Doctor just slides into that universe, and it just all starts to tie in. It's a wonderful story, I have to say, and I think
the whole box set was brilliant. I don't know if you've listened to the other two. So
Baba Yaga was the best.
And we're not just saying that.
I'm not biased.
You know, people were going mad for it online and really liked it. So
I'm really glad. I think it's been so fun for me. It's like, it feels like meshing sci-fi with a period drama. It's like the best of all worlds.
I think I've said this before on here, but Doctor Who is creatively unlimited. You know, it can do anything, go anywhere. There's always going to be a way to, you know, explain something. You know, there was sort of a magical element to Baba Yaga, and you know, the Doctor says it's science that's not explained yet, or you know, or the other way around. And you know, but you can push it into these different directions, and you know, just make some nonsense up to explain it, but to create a great story out of it. And that's one of the things that we love about it, isn't it?
It's so exciting. I think that's what makes it really special.
Yeah. So
there's that wonderful sort of play between Vasilisa and the Doctor when Vasilisa she's questioning the Doctor. So it is like magic. Then the Doctor said there's no such thing as magic. It's just science I can't explain yet.
Yeah.
And then it goes on a little bit further, and she just can't explain how this thing works. I don't get it.
Yeah.
And Vasilisa's like, so it is magic then, basically. Yeah. By your own definition.
And it was really pushing in that direction at one point, that it was going to be something unexplained, you know. And I liked, you know, one of the good things about Jo's Doctor is she's quite sort of, I was going to say rough around the edges. That's probably not quite the right thing, but she's
very forward.
Yeah, gets a bit shirty and arsey about things. And,
you know, and really funny.
Yes, really funny as well. And, you know, when she appeared in the show, you know, amazing. But with this box set, you know, they got to explore a lot more of her and also maintain, you know, the mystery. Like, people always say, oh, where does she fit in the timeline? And stuff. Who cares? You know,
you don't know.
That's the thing about her. You don't know. And if you answer it, it starts to take away a lot of the stuff. And I think that's one of the, you know, the great things about it, that you don't know everything, you know.
Yeah.
So in fact, she's just up behind me on my left shoulder on my shelf there. So
who, Jo Martin?
Yeah, I shrunk her.
Oh, the Doctor. There we go.
Yeah, you probably can't see, but she's there. So yeah,
brilliant.
She's great.
If you say so, Jeff. Brilliant. Thanks for that, mate. That's made it all worthwhile.
Well, thank you very much for joining us tonight, Sophie. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you and getting to know you a bit more and all the different things that you do. So
definitely
keep in touch, keep us posted on everything, and we look forward to hearing more from you soon and seeing more from you on screen and online as well.
Oh, thank you guys. It's been a pleasure. I've loved it.
Good. Thank you very much. Thanks for listening, everyone. And we'll catch you next time on Who Corner to Corner podcast.
Yes,
see you
definitely.
next time.
Cheers. Bye.